Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk some more about El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie. And the question I want to discuss in this video is, did Jesse Pinkman actually redeem himself in this movie? We know he did a lot of bad things in the past. The worst of all is probably killing Gale, because Gale was not really, an evil guy. He didn't really deserve it. He was a criminal, but he was not the type of criminal who would ever hurt anyone physically, and so I don't think he deserved to be killed for it. So that was probably Jesse's biggest sin in the whole show. And I can't think what he did can be justified under self-defense, because, he could have just gone to the police. So he didn't have to kill him to save himself. It can be argued he needed to save Walter, because Walter would have been killed otherwise. But still, trading a life for a life is not really a moral thing to do. So I would say he's totally guilty of killing that person. And I don't personally believe that sort of thing, killing someone in cold blood, can ever be truly fully redeemed. But he could have been partially redeemed. And first of all, of course, all the circumstances of it being kind of a self-defense, kind of saving another person in the process. Also, Gale was not completely innocent, he was a criminal. So that kind of lessens that guilt a little bit. And as we saw in season 4 of Breaking Bad, Jesse basically spent the whole season kind of punishing himself, feeling regret, torturing himself because of what he did. So we do know for a fact that he was feeling guilty for what he did, and that's one of the most important things about redemption. You can't really forgive someone if he doesn't ask for forgiveness. If he doesn't show any regret for his actions, you cannot forgive such a person, but Jesse obviously did feel regret. And then later in season 5 and in the new movie, we also saw how much Jesse was kind of punished, both physically and psychologically. He was abused, and so he kind of got his punishment in a way, you can say. And that also kind of makes you feel sorry for him and makes you more inclined to kind of pity him in a way, and so that also kind of makes you forgive him a little bit. You're still kind of rooting for him because you've seen that he was regretful, that he was sorry for what he did, and that he was basically punished in many ways, even though it wasn't a direct punishment for that specific sin. But still, him as a character, you can see him getting tortured for a long while, being abused. But I still would say that's not really enough for a true redemption of a character. That's not enough. Just because someone got punished and abused and tortured, you could argue that person got what he deserves, he got his punishment, and therefore can be let loose. But I don't really think that alone is enough for someone to be redeemed. Just because someone was punished, and even if that someone regretted what he did, that's still not enough to truly be redeemed. But there is a scene in the new movie which I do think kind of makes him redeemable. And that is the moment in which he could have escaped that captivity, and yet he didn't. And when I first saw that scene, I kind of misunderstood it. I thought of it as Jesse just being a broken man, being scared, being terrified, and that's why he doesn't do it. He has a chance to escape. He can kill Todd and get all his money, his car, and escape, and yet he doesn't. And so at first I thought it's just because he was scared in that moment, because he was previously broken physically and mentally, and because of that he's unable to do it. But later, when I really thought about it, I realized that wasn't the reason he didn't do it. The true reason was that he wanted to protect Brock, that child that that gang threatened to kill if he tries to escape again, and I think that was the main reason he didn't escape when he had the chance. And instead to basically go back to that cage, to that hell, just to protect that child and that boy. And that is a very selfless act. That's basically him being like a martyr, sacrificing himself, choosing to stay in that purgatory, possibly forever, just to protect that child. So that's basically him kind of becoming a martyr character and choosing suffering for himself just to defend someone else. And that makes that character truly redeemable. That means he finally is doing things for other people, even if it means he has to suffer for it, and also he has to give up on his own desire for revenge and his selfish wish to escape and all of that, and basically go back to hellish conditions instead. And that moment, in my opinion, is when the character becomes truly good, truly selfless. And as we know from the series finale, he did eventually manage to escape, and he did end up killing Todd. But him killing Todd was even more of a poetic justice after watching that flashback in the movie, because he killed him by strangling him with his chains. And I think he was justified to do that even back when we just saw the show. I do think he was fully justified in doing that because, Todd was a child murderer, he killed a kid for no reason. He killed his girlfriend just to punish him. He also kept him as a slave, as a prisoner. So I do think Jesse had every right to kill him. However, after watching those flashbacks in El Camino, in which we saw that Todd was actually killing even more people, and one of them was his cleaning lady whom he strangled to death just because she found his money. And so that makes his death in the end of season 5 even more satisfying and even more justifiable, especially such a brutal way to kill him by strangling him. So Jesse was basically taking revenge on him, not just for what we saw from the show, but also for that cleaning lady whom Todd strangled to death, and now Jesse strangles him to death, and that's kind of a poetic justice. Later in the movie El Camino, Jesse does kill 2 more guys, but they were also kind of guilty criminals, and so we don't really feel sorry for that. And he kind of did it in a self-defense. He didn't come there just to kill them. He tried to do it peacefully, to get back his own money, the money which he earned basically. So they stole from him, then he came there to politely ask them for it, and then they attacked him and he killed them. And those 2 were criminals with ties to that same gang we saw previously, and so I don't think it was evil to kill them. Also, he did let go those other guys who were in the room who did not attack him. So that shows that he's not just bloodthirsty, killing anyone who is in his way. And Jesse uses that money to basically buy himself a new identity and start a new life in Alaska. And the last time we see him, he's wearing a white sweater, and the color white was always symbolic for pureness and innocence. And so I think those colors kind of indicate that Jesse is redeemed and reborn as a new person, and he can start a clean slate and all of that. And presumably he'll stay away from a life of crime. After everything he's experienced, he kind of learned his lessons, so he probably will not be doing that kind of stuff again. And he will become a better person, and therefore, because of all those elements together, I do think we can say he kind of got redeemed as a character by the end of the movie. And especially because of that scene I mentioned of him making a selfless choice to continue to suffer to save someone else who is innocent. And that, I think, is an admirable choice that makes him into the good guy in a way. Now, the way the scene was shown, I don't think that was made clear enough that that was the point of the scene. Maybe it was left ambiguous deliberately, because the way I interpreted this scene the first time I saw it is that Jesse was simply scared and terrified because he was a broken man, and that's why he couldn't pull the trigger. And it was even implied later in the movie when he was facing a similar choice. It kind of tied back to that scene. And I do think that could have been an element in all of that as well, meaning he didn't just make that choice because he made kind of a moral decision, but it was also because he was scared and broken and terrified and probably exhausted. Some people can argue that if he just wanted to save the boy, he could have done it a different way. He could have still killed Todd and then take his car, take his money, and then go and find that kid and save him. He could also notify the police, let the police know about the threat to the kid's life. And he had at least one day until Uncle Jack would have discovered what happened to Todd and all of that. So Jesse did have other ways to save the kid, presumably. But all those other ways were not guaranteed to succeed. Meaning, first of all, he didn't know where Brock is because this was all after his mother died. So he was probably in a foster home or something like that. And if Jesse went to the police, he would get arrested. And the police wouldn't take him seriously, they wouldn't care. And then Jack's gang would be able to find the kid and kill him. They're a big gang with a lot of resources, a lot of money, with a lot of connections. So Jesse probably knew they would take revenge against the kid if he kills Todd, and so that's why he didn't do it. You could see in his eyes, and by the way, that scene had some brilliant acting by Aaron Paul, and you can see in his eyes like how much he wants to kill Todd, but he cannot, because if he does, he knows the kid will also die. On the other hand, he also wants his freedom. He knows this is his only opportunity to escape. And yet he gives that up because he wants to protect the kid. And that's the only way to truly do that. He has to sacrifice himself to continue suffering, because that's the only way to guarantee Brock's safety. So I do think that was the main reason he didn't shoot Todd in that scene. They even made a point of it earlier on in the movie, in which Todd tells him that if he tries to escape again, his uncle will kill the kid. And so that was the main reason Jesse doesn't want to do it. On top of it, we know that he's exhausted, we know that he's been living in very bad conditions, and then Todd makes him do all the work to dig that grave and to bury that woman out in the desert. So he's probably mentally and physically exhausted, and he knows he will not have the time or the energy or the resources to protect the kid, and even going to the police will probably not save him, and that gang can even kill him in prison. So I think all those reasons together was why Jesse didn't pull that trigger. It could have been partly due to him just being scared and broken and terrified and exhausted, but the main point is that he did it not to sacrifice that kid, to save that kid, to protect him. He had to sacrifice his own freedom and his own well-being, even though he knew what his life will be in those conditions, and yet he still chooses that fate to save the kid. So that was the moment in which he truly redeemed himself, in my opinion, when he finally did such a selfless act to accept punishment on himself to save another person. And so all of that makes me root for him much more, and it makes it a very happy ending when he manages to get away and start a new life. And he's wearing all white, which symbolizes a clean slate, that he can start fresh, and he's basically a redeemed character from that point. And this is one of the many reasons I do think this is a good movie. It's not some kind of masterpiece, I'm not saying this is an epic movie, but it is a very nice continuation and tying up all these loose ends from the show, and it's a very good end to Jesse's story. And I remember when I first watched that movie and I saw all those flashback scenes, I was thinking, why are they doing that? I was thinking, I want to see the continuation, I want to see the future, I don't want to see all that stuff happening in the past. So I didn't actually like it that much the first time I saw it, but now thinking back, it was kind of necessary to set up that redemption element. And of course the acting was absolutely brilliant, and that really makes it all work. I love all kinds of subtle acting without the actor even saying anything, just watching his expressions, watching his eyes, and figuring out what he thinks, what he feels without him even saying anything. That's the mark of a truly great acting. And so all in all, I think those flashbacks were necessary, and it does improve the movie. It also makes it kind of a non-linear. It ties to stuff happening in the past to things happening in the present, the same way as the show often did. It also gave us some more glimpses into the character of Todd, who was a very interesting villain, with a kind of strange dichotomy between being a nice guy and being an evil psychopath, all in the same person, that made it kind of interesting and funny, in a dark humor kind of way. So all in all, I think this is a very good movie. Anyone who enjoyed the show probably will enjoy the movie as well. It feels like another couple of good episodes added to the show, basically. And that's good, I'm very happy we got this movie. So that's all I really had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think, and we can talk about it in the comment section below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.